Okay. Well, thanks for coming today. This is I am doing a Photoshop tutorial on how to make a pattern out of your unused art. And I'm going to be showing you my process for doing this. And I do it a lot. I do it a lot. I just, even when I get stuck or I'm not sure what to make, or I have to make something for a client quickly, and I need a simple pattern or an everyday pattern, I will go to artwork that I already have and I'll see what I can make out of it. Unless I'm, obviously have new ideas that I'll start from scratch. But, I'm sure we all have a lot of unused art, right, that we're not using and we're not sure what to do with it or what to make of it. So I'm going to guide you through that today and guide you through my process of figuring it out. And I'm going to be using Photoshop. So if you're not a Photoshop user, it's okay because you can take the ideas, the concepts, the process, and everything that I'm doing and use it in Procreate or however you make your art. And I'll emphasize that as I go along too, so you can see if you're not quite sure how it works for you. But you can, take your Procreate drawings and save them or export them as a PSD file, and then you can bring them into Photoshop and do the same thing with them. So you can still have your textures and everything. So this works great if you are a painter, if you have textured artwork that you want to keep the integrity of. That's why I use Photoshop, because it's great. I can bring my paintings in and manipulate them and compose things and change the colors and do all the sizing and everything in one program. And I've used it forever and ever, so it's just kind of my go-to. And if you don't know Photoshop, I don't want you to get lost, but I'm not going to teach Photoshop basics. It's just going to be, I'm just going to work in Photoshop, explain what I'm doing, and you can see the process. So if you aren't, up to speed in Photoshop all the way, hopefully this will give you a little bit of a, kind of a working overview of how it's used. Okay. So just make sure you're all muted before I start, and just think we're good. Okay. And if you have any questions, you're here live, just put it in the chat or feel free to holler out to me. I'll be working on my Cintiq over here, so I'm not going to always be looking up to read and read the chat, but I'll make a point to check in. If you can't hear me, have any issues, technical problems, please let me know, because I don't want that to, to be an issue while we're here together today. I did have them in the past, so, let me know. Please let me know. And we'll fix it. Okay. Let's see. Is there any other announcements? I might be sharing some more advanced techniques too. So if you are a Photoshop person, you might learn something new today. And yeah, so let's hop in. I have a slideshow to show you. And so let's do that first. All right, so thanks for coming. Let's get started. All right, where's the slides? Okay. Hold on just a sec. That's how it's going to be. Sorry, it was being difficult. Okay, let me share my screen. Let's start. Screen zooming today. All right, so I'm going to share my desktop with you. If you have any trouble seeing anything too, let me know. But I think we'll be okay. Okay. So, okay. So we are going to be talking about how to make patterns in Photoshop out of your unused art. And this is a quick overview of what we're going to do today. First thing before we even do this, and this is what I do, you have to kind of create an intention or purpose for what this art is for. If you want to make patterns just to make patterns, that's awesome. Do that if you want to practice. But if you are using this for an art licensing pitch or to put into a collection that you already have, or to start a new collection, or just to, if you are going to be using it for something specific, I want you to kind of define that from the beginning because that will help you design it. So we are designing, and I'm going to teach you a lot about how I think like a designer. And surface design for me is really just it's design. It really is. It's not making art for art's sake. It's really designing with a purpose in mind and with a with the use in mind. So an application for it, right? So in this case, we're going to take our art, and I really want you before you start to kind of think about what do you need this artwork for? What are you looking and mining through your existing artwork for? And so for me, if, like I said, I was saying in the beginning, I don't know if you heard me in the replay, but I was saying that if I need art specifically for a client and I need something, I will go and see what I already have because I do have a lot of doodles and random things and stuff I never use. So, if I have it, why not just make artwork out of it, right? And then I kind of go through this process that I'm going to show you to put it into Photoshop and make a pattern out of it. So what is it for? Do you need it for a coordinate, for an existing piece or a collection? Is there a particular piece or collection you'd like to make? Is this for a licensing or your POD store, or are you going to put it on Spoonflower? You're going to make wallpaper out of it, for instance. And if you do that, then the fonts will be really big. Do I want to make new art from a portfolio? So, and this process works really well if you are adding on to an existing collection. So maybe you need a coordinate pattern or a blender or an abstract or something, an everyday pattern. And this works really well for that. Make sure everybody's muted. I can hear some folks. So think about what the purpose of this is for and what you'd like to do with it. And that also will help you set the file properly too. So you want to kind of plan ahead, right? So if you are doing wallpaper and you're going to put it on Spoonflower, say, then the artboard needs to be at least 12 inches wide. It needs to be 12 inches wide, actually, because that's the substrate. And then the width of the substrate of the wallpaper. And then that the motifs need to be, or the pattern needs to be at a bigger scale. So then that will help you prepare for how, to scan this and how to set up the file. So if you kind of know what you're doing with it, great. If you, think you're going to use it for smaller scale things like stationery, then, it doesn't have to be enormous. These are things to think ahead of time on. So step 2, look through your unused art and take inventory of what you have. So do you have specific motifs in a theme that you'd like to design for? So maybe you have a bunch of random florals sitting around that you painted. So you could do a floral design with this, or add it to an existing floral collection. Do you have lots of marks and shapes that you can use for abstract art patterns? So maybe they're just random marks, doodles, and things, and those make great abstract patterns. Do you have art that could coordinate with something you have already made? So like I was saying before, maybe this art that you're looking through your stuff and you're like, oh, this will go with this other thing. So it's also important to look in and look at maybe you have a mini collection or maybe a single piece that you could pair a coordinate with, or, something that you can round it out a little bit more. This would be a good use of your art. Sort out the art and label. So you can sort out your art and label it as a potential coordinate, a new work piece, or something for Spoonflower. So sometimes I'll do that, like if I'm, especially with sketchbooks and things, you can actually put, just put little stickies in there, or label them, like, oh, this would be good for this would be good for that. And then when you're, ready to make artwork again, you can sit down and just go through the book and be like, oh, I want to try this and I want to make something out of this, right? So you've already kind of like designated it for something. That doesn't mean you have to stick to that, by the way. I don't want you to feel like all right, I made this decision, now I have to make it happen. You'll find, especially with Photoshop, in the way I work, I'm not really, I'm not as planned out with everything. So I kind of have an idea and that just gets me started. And then I take that idea and I work through that. And sometimes it takes me somewhere else or it might evolve into something even better I can use for a different project or whatever else I want to do with it. So you'll see. So don't, feel like this is, once you make that decision, it has to be this thing because you'll be surprised how it turns out. Okay, the next, select the art that you can, and when I say piece together into a pattern, we're literally going to take pieces of it and compose it and put it into a pattern. So maybe there's more than one that you think might work together. And maybe you don't know, and that's okay. That's okay. But this is the kind of fun part where you like, oh, this might work with this. And once you do a lot of it, then and you start developing your style more, or if you haven't, then you'll see that, oh, I know these things go together, or these could make a really cool something really cool. So it's really just kind of a practice thing. Scan if needed. So if you did in Procreate and you bring it over, you don't have to scan it. But if it's something you painted, then you need to scan it, and you need to separate the motifs out and make sure they're on their own layers, so you can move them around in Photoshop. And I'll show you a lot of this as we go. Now, when you get to DPI, it can get a little tricky. So you're going to scan them at least 300. Okay. And that is kind of bare minimum. I would never go less than that. Now, when you scan at 300, it's going to be 1-to-1. And what that means is what you say the motif is 2 inches wide by 2 inches tall. Then when you bring it into a 300 DPI 10 by 12 document, it's going to be that same exact size. So the document size is the same DPI as what you scanned it in, then that's 1-to-1. It's going to stay the same size. If you make a larger, like say your document is 600 DPI and you bring that 300 image in, it's going to be smaller because your document size is bigger. It doesn't mean you could scan it up bigger because your document size is bigger. No, that doesn't work that way. You have to scan it larger and then bring it into that 600 DPI document. So if you want to scan it larger, then that means you could scale it up more. So 300 to 600 is double, right? So if it's 2 by 2, you can enlarge that at least to 4 by 4, and probably can go a little bigger than that. 600 is very large. Now, I've noticed in my work that if I scan at 300, and this is something, don't hold me to this. You got to try this. But I find that I can still go and enlarge it about 20% more when I bring it in before it starts to get pixelated and blow up a little bit. So, and it depends on how big the motif was, right? If the motif was like 4 by 4 or 5 by 5, I mean, if I made it really big, then yeah, I can definitely enlarge that sucker up to like, at least 20% more. If it's a small little guy, then I probably wouldn't, go more than try to go double on that. But it's something you have to see on screen, and you have to just zoom in at like 100%. And then if it starts to look like it's blowing up, then you know that it's just, you can't go that big with it. You have to start over with it. So it's kind of something you can test on the screen, and then also do a test print. Just print, if you have a printer, just print out, a section of it, and you can see what it's looking like. Because, then you'll know for sure that, if I want to make this bigger for Swimflower or something, I got to go back and scan it higher, and then I got to blow it up more. So for me, it's like I go back and forth and I kind of trial and error it. If you want to make sure it's going to be big enough, do it at least 600. Now, file size is going to get enormous, and that's just the name of the game of Photoshop. So make sure you have enough RAM and you have enough memory in your computer, because it'll start to chug. And when you see that happening, it's probably because your computer isn't souped up enough, or it's maxed out too much, and you got to clean off some files. You got to shut down programs. It can be a thing working in Photoshop. It's not, if you have large files, everybody who works in Photoshop deals with this. And I have files that are gigabytes. I have to do table runners, and they're 72 inches long, and I didn't make a repeat pattern. I built it in the template, and so you can imagine how big these files can get. So even just making signage and different things like that, they can get really big. So it is kind of like something you just have to learn along the way. But I tend to scan at 300, and then and I do a lot of stationery. I do a lot of paper goods, and I do smaller items like tea towels. I don't really do bedding, and I do a lot of wallpaper. But if I know I'm doing wallpaper, I make sure that the pattern works and is big enough for the larger scale that I want to make it at the 12-inch wide file. So, so think about that when you set your files too, because if you have, just know that if you're going to make wallpaper, your motifs have to be substantial. They can't be little guys. So I'm thinking like 6 inches at least, and then when you're putting it in that 12-inch, you can only get like 2 or 3 in there, right? 2 in there. So they have to be 5 by 5. So that's going to be kind of small. So maybe, you got to figure it out. Maybe it's wrapping around the side and one motif is really big. It's something you got to like really plan ahead on. Okay. So I'm not going to get too into that right now, but something to think about. You DPI scan. The bigger you scan, the better if you want a really large file and you want to keep the integrity of the painting. And I know artists that work at a 20-inch artboard, and they do a lot of Procreate and also painting. And they do that because they want to make sure and they could be 300 at 20, but make sure the motifs are, good size if you're going to do that. You can do the 600. You're going to have a huge file. I only do that if I have a puzzle, like I said, or something like I know spring flower. If I know I need to work at a 24-inch artboard or bigger, then I kind of set that up as I go and I plan it ahead. So if you don't know what you don't know, and if you like to work like they do, and always have a big file and know that it's going to work for everything, and you could work large. But I usually don't make a bigger than a 16 or 18-inch artboard unless I know it's going to be for a puzzle. Then I'll do like a 20 to 24 or something like that. But I haven't really had any issues with working, between, I would say, 12 to 18-inch artboards. Usually it's what I do. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so we're scanning it, and then you compose your art. So I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by this. And this is a really quick way to get started if you don't know what to do with all this stuff. So now you have all these little pieces and bobs, and you're like, I don't know what I'm putting them into. I don't know what this looks like. Then I just start arranging them in a square, a rectangle, a triangle, a hexagon, or just a little cluster. And because I do a lot of my artwork, you may notice, is very tight. I don't do a lot of like open art, I would say open patterns. So my patterns need to be really tight. So I will start clustering and putting them together. If you work in a square or a rectangle, that square and rectangle can tile together. The triangle can tile together. You can just flip it into a square or a rectangle, and then you turn that into a repeat from there. A hexagon, you can it's a 6-sided shape and it fits all the way around and it just keeps going. So if you want to make sure that it's going to fit and work and be a tiled piece, sometimes I just start there. And if it's not working, then I move on to a toss or something else. But just to start, especially with these little pieces, do the little clusters and put them in just an odd ball shape. It doesn't have to be in this, a defined shape. If it looks like something that's not going to fit in a defined shape, then just start with a little cluster, because then you can start building that cluster out, and then you can start repeating it left to right, and then you have a toss. But the square rectangles will be a tessellated tile shape, or a pattern shape. So you'll see what I mean. Find the layout that works best. So as you keep going, it's just going to evolve on its own. And this is how I work. I don't really plan it out, or I don't just put them on the page, all the motifs, and then just make a toss out of them. That's what a lot of people do. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is not how I work. And I don't think you're going to get really interesting patterns every time you do that. You're just going to have a toss and another toss and another toss. So I want to get you out of the toss, and I want to show you other ways that you can approach this. Okay. And you can also think about being multi-directional for fabric too. So if you're doing fabric, this is why you have to have these intentions in mind, purpose in mind. Then okay, I need to build this so it's 2-directional, say, or all the way around. So the fabric can be turned all the way around, and the motifs aren't just one way. And then your color can be changed later. That's the beauty of working in Photoshop. So I don't worry about all that right now. I worry about the composition first. And then I worry about a color later. Now I do, because I know what I'm doing, right? So I am thinking about color as I'm going through it. And I'm like, well, these colors might be too hard to change later. Or maybe, just the way it was painted or something, it might not quite get as vibrant as I need or whatever. So it is something keeping in mind as I'm building it and pulling things together. And then get the composition set. So figure out what this thing looks like before then you go ahead and make the repeat at the end. And here's the thing, I don't always make the repeat, you guys. I can say majority of my portfolio is not in repeat unless it's needed to be. I work a lot in templates for clients. They want me to put the art just in the front cover of the journal or on the pages of the calendar. So I don't have to make the repeats. The repeats are really necessary if you're doing fabric, or things that need to be, like, mostly fabric related things, I would say. Sometimes I need, I did a drink cup. They needed to repeat all the way around. The client will tell you if you need to repeat, then I just make it later. And built it in a way where I can fix it later. In Photoshop, pattern view is awesome, and you can really just make anything repeat easily. So you'll, again, once we get started, you'll see more of what I'm saying. But I wouldn't get hung up on the repeat so much either, especially if you're just new to this and you're getting started. Definitely learn how to make that repeat, because you need to know how to do it quickly, and be familiar with that. But I would not let that stop you from learning how to design. And you need to design first. That's what you need to know how to make a killer pattern, right? And that's what's going to sell. And that's what you're putting out there. Not so much your repeat skills. So I'm sorry, maybe that is not a popular opinion. I don't know, but I know a lot of artists that do not do that. So you've been doing this a long time. And I know a lot of artists teach that now, because then you have to know it. But honestly, if you're working in templates, a lot of stuff is templated. A lot of home decor and paper goods, and they're all templated. A gift bag is templated. A pillow is templated. I've done all these things that I work to give me the templates. So I just drop my artwork in there. So I make it big enough so that it'll fit in the template. So the 12 by 12 is plenty to fit. That fits a calendar, that fits the journal, that fits it. Doesn't always fit a tea towel, so I will have to expand on that longer, but that's easy enough to do if it designed it right. Okay, so continue to tweak it until you like it, and then it will take some. I don't even. Okay, so it'll take some time to compose it. So it's not something that's like you do it quickly and you're done, unless you just see it and you can kind of do it fast. But if you're not sure, take your time with it, because as it develops, it'll get better and better. Trust me. And then you're like, oh my God, I didn't know it could look like this. And this is why I like working this way, because I don't know what it's going to look like. And so it's very surprising and cool. And then you might even come up with 5 different pattern solutions out of this random art that you didn't even realize you could do with it. So this is a fun way to work. And then pattern view, which is the way that you repeat it in Photoshop. It's a really easy way. You basically just push it off the artboard and it wraps around the other side. There's no math. It's beautiful. So I don't do math either. That's another thing. I do not. I hate it. I cannot stand it. So if you're somebody who really needs a mathematical way, go for it and do the offset and, tell it to wrap around negative 3,000 on this side or whatever your pixels or your artboard is set up to. Oh, here's another thing. I do not work in pixels. I found that since the iPad came into the world, because I've been doing this for 25 years now, that always worked in inches. Always. In the US, worked in inches. Everything I've done, I've been a graphic designer forever. So, and then for product design, it's in inches or centimeters, because it's usually or millimeters. Sometimes it's coming from a factory in China, and they work in centimeters and millimeters. Never have I needed pixels. Pixels is for web. So I'm not going to talk in pixels. So if you work in pixels, I'm going to talk in inches. Clients do not give you files in pixels. Clients will never give you a template in pixels. Pixels is web based. So I get that, because a lot of artists learned on an iPad, and they learned the industry on the iPad, and everybody teaches in pixels. And I think it's really weird. So, so this industry is not pixel related at all. So you're going to get files in centimeters, millimeters, and inches from clients. So just FYI, okay, we never, ever, ever, we're going to say, unless it's a new company, and I've seen that with a couple of the newer companies are like, oh, we're going to give you the pixels, but and the hex colors, but they're not working in web. So, so just keep this in mind when you get files from clients. You're going to work in inches and centimeters. Okay. All right. So these are just some like aside things that I've seen that definitely want to address. So here's just some art I'm going to show you today. And you can see here there's tiled art, there's tossed art, and it's been used for a few things. So this, let me blow it up a little bit. This piece right here, I call it confetti, and this was literally made from a palette of colors that I was putting on a paper. I was like mixing colors and trying to figure out what a palette would be for something I was painting, and it basically just took the palette and scanned it because it looked really cool. And these are all just little marks that I made. This is a sketch from my sketch, a bunch of doodles in a sketchbook, made this pattern. These are a bunch of random marks that I basically cut out. I used like one of the cut tools in Photoshop, and I just went and just cut out little shapes of something that already existed. And I took those little shapes, put them on their own layers, and painstakingly pieced them together one by one to make this repeat pattern. So that was, I don't know why I had a lot of time on my hands on that one. This is a tile, and I'll show you how to make a tile out of a triangle. And then this is two different floral blobs. They weren't like abstract, just quickie little paintings. And I put them together, pieced them together, and made that floral abstract and recolored it. That. So I'll show you, hopefully you have enough time. I'll walk you through those files, but I want to do one tutorial first, and then I'll walk you through the other files and just open the layers so you can see how I built them once you see how I did it. Okay, I think we're going to go to at least, I'm going to go to about 2:30 today, which would be 11:30 for the West Coasters. So, so just FYI, if you need to go, no problem. There will be a replay for you. So you'll have that. So this will be about an hour and a half. There's a lot to cover. Okay, so let me go to the chat. Any questions here? No. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat or just go off mute and holler out to me. I'm going to get started on Photoshop file part of this. Okay, so all right, we're good? We're good? Okay. All right, so let me set this next part up. So I'm going to explain to you what I meant by the hexagon, the tile, or making a tile from the hexagon, or the little cluster and the square, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to go into Illustrator because it's the best way to explain that. So, let's see what it says. All right, so I'm going to go over here to my Cintiq, and I work off a 16-inch Cintiq. So, and I have, this is how I do everything, and I've been doing it this way since I was a graphic designer. So I had a Wacom tablet, and then they came out with the screens, and then I never looked back. So pretty much every job I ever had, I had one at my desk, and I can't really work any other way. So, so this is what I'm going to be doing over here. So can you see? I can't see what you see. Can you see this screen?
Yes.
Okay. And does it say Illustrator at the top? You see the top bar? And
yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's get, this is my Photoshop. All right. So what I'm going to do here is show you what I mean by making a top. This might be a refresher for some of you. I learned how to make patterns by hand using graph paper back in the day when pre-computer. So basically this is the foundations of making a pattern. And I'm going to do this quickly, but this is the reason I'm showing you this, you'll see, because I use this still to this day when I approach a pattern. So this is a finished tile pattern right here. And you may, and somebody may make these. And basically it looks like a square that's repeated over and over. But the square was composed from the triangle, which was really just this part right here. And this part right here got flipped and reversed into this square. And then this square got repeated over here. And then it was reversed and mirrored, and then mirrored. And then you take this whole section, repeat it down here, and you mirror that again. And that's how you get that design. So you can design half of this or even a quarter of it, and then just repeat it all the way around. And that's pretty much what I did. And so I kind of think that like that if I want to make a tile pattern. So for instance, like, I don't know if you use Illustrator, but if you make a pattern in Illustrator, so they have a pattern generator. So you go object, pattern, make. And then when you go to it's over here on my other screen. When you go to the properties here, you're going to see that it's a grid, a brick by row, brick by column, hex. So this is that hexagon I'm talking about, and you can have it so the hexagon is shaped like this or it's shaped like that. Any six-sided shape that has equal sides will fit into each other over and over again. So it doesn't even have to be a hexagon. You can make some string. I guess it has to just fit in a six-sided shape. And then by row, by column. So if you change this up, you'll see it got tighter, right? Because everything is pulling together into the shape. And I can move these around, make it tighter, make the spacing more even. If I go by row, then you can see it's squashed down more, and it's more on the row going left to right. And then I could still move around. So I just want you to see that when you compose them within this hexagon shape, it'll fit into itself over and over. So you could literally take this hexagon and then duplicate it all the way around and fit the edges together, and you would just make what the computer is doing for you on that side. So that's what a hexagon does. And they also have these I think I have it on my screen somewhere. I'll show you. You can look up, if you work in Procreate, you can look up Photoshop guides, pattern guides, and there'll be different ones that people make, and they'll make the hexagon for you in different shapes, and you put your art within them, and then you just draw it. You do it to all four corner thing, and then you make a repeat out of it. So you could work and you put all your motifs within the center, and then you can just use that as your guide. So if you look up Photoshop pattern guides, not Photoshop, Procreate pattern guides, you'll find there's a bunch of artists that are making it now. It Lisa Gantz has some. So it's an easy way to work if you want to make a repeat there. But I just want you to see, like, this is the foundation of it. So what I did here was, let's see, this is the triangle. This is how the triangle works. So I just have to do here. Okay. So what I did was I just drew a bunch of squiggles in here. So I'm going to start over because I want you to see. I want you to see what I'm doing. And I'm going to spend a little time on this. I really think this is important. And we're like, oh, just make it in Photoshop. But you can't start unless you know how to make a pattern. Okay? That's why I'm emphasizing this. So if you want to make this kind of tessellated tile pattern, you've got to put stuff in. You've got to address every corner. So in this corner, I put like a squiggle. This corner, I put a squiggle. This corner, I put a little deep. It could be a filled shape. Doesn't matter, right? Then, and in the middle, I can do whatever I want, really. So if you touch the side, if you stay in the center, then it's not going to touch. Whatever happens in the middle is not going to repeat to the edge, to the other edge, to the other edge. So if you touch this side, when these two sides meet, this will connect to wherever the next one is. So just remember that. Whatever you put here, it doesn't have to be in the same position here. You can go center and you can go down here. It doesn't matter. But just for, what we're doing, I'm going to do this. And then just add some dots. And I'm not really doing anything special. Okay? Dots. Okay, so what you do is, what I'm going to show you is when you have your little motifs and things that you're pulling randomly from your sketchbook, you can arrange them in this type of 90-degree triangle. Okay, and you can put a little motif here, a little motif here. You can draw a line here. You can do all that. You can add stuff in Photoshop. Doesn't have to be anything perfect, right? And then you're arranging them in here. So imagine these are all little motifs. And then I'm going to do it in one color just to show you. So we're going to copy and paste in front. And then I'm just going to rotate that all the way around. And you're going to get this, oops, this mirrored effect, okay? And then it's not perfect, but you see it's already like looking at something. Then if I want to then you take this, I'm going to group it. Now, when you go side by side, it's called transposing it, and it doesn't reflect. You have to reflect it. So I'm going to go and reflect it vertically. Now it matches up. Now what I should do is I'm going to make these a different color so they kind of fall away. Okay, so you can see the pattern starting to happen. Then I go, now I'm transposing it again. It doesn't do anything, so I have to reflect it, and I'm going to reflect it horizontally. So these are all your little things that you have that you put together, and you kind of like looped them up, and then now you just made a cool tile pattern out of it. So all the yellow, those are just your guidelines, but now you have this interesting pattern. And this is going back to this is how this was made. I repeated it over and over again. And then in the center, you'll find that you have something new that's created. So for instance, so I could go back and, I can continue to add on to this. And when I make these, I like to keep adding on to them. So I might want to add something in the center here to make it cooler. I might want to color some of these. So this is the fun part, like when you have fun with it. So now I can see this tile patterns coming. If you want to leave the grid lines in there, you can. If you like that tile grid. So see how easy that was? So this is just one way you can make a pattern out of your little doodaddy things that I'm calling doodads that you have. Okay. Same thing. You don't need to start with a triangle. Triangles, I find, just are more unpredictable and make something really interesting that you didn't plan out. You want to plan it ahead of time. Go ahead and draw it already in a rectangle or a square. And then you just take that rectangle and square and do the same thing with it. And you have to remember to mirror it every time. So if you go left to right, the vertical, and then you come top to bottom, you're going to go horizontal. And you could leave it like that, but it looks weird. Unless you want, and sometimes I've done that before, but then you have to go in and draw in the centers to match and fix itself. It's going to repeat this way, but it's just going to be weird. Reflect it. There we go. And then there you go. And then there you have a new pattern. I'm going to move on to Photoshop, and I'm going to show you how this translates into Photoshop. So I'm going to show you a sketchbook of mine. No, it's not. It is. Okay, so this is a sketchbook page. Any questions, by the way? I'm going to check the chat. Nope. All right. So I'm not going to make art and then scan it and bring it in and everything right now. I'm not going to have time for that, but I did explain that. So when you just scan, I believe I scanned this. Let's see what it says. Scan this on my scanner at 300. So these are, and this is a small sketchbook. I think this sketchbook is like 6x6 or something. So maybe smaller than that. So these motifs are small. So, and you know what? And when I made a spoonflower art from it. The pattern was pretty small. So something to think about. Like if I was going to do this for spoonflower, and these drawings were, let's see, right here, one by one. So these guys are tiny. So, this artboard I made, this is the final pattern, and I'm just going to walk you through my process of designing this. It's 14 by 14. This was not the spoonflower. It's in a square, so I think I just resized it to 12 by 12 and brought it in. That's probably why I ended up being small. Okay, so I'm going to just show you how I took the sketchbook. It's kind of a cool process. So say you have a sketchbook page or just random pages, and actually, hold on, let me the chat. Okay, so I made this in my sketchbook, and they're just doodles. Didn't really know what I was going to do with them, and I do this a lot. I'll just, kind of free paint, come up with some cool ideas, and just see what happens. And then I know I'm going to take these later and make art out of it. Okay, and I can cut them out, and I can arrange them, and I can color them, and just do something fun with them. So what I did was, and you can see the art page. Can you see this? Let me make sure. Can you all see this sketchbook page?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Because when I work, when I go into certain like screen modes, it doesn't always show the extra screen. So I want to make sure you see it. Thanks. So, all right. So on the sketchbook page, I went ahead and started cutting out things. So I would and I was like, oh, I really like this little U part. And I kind of cut into here, here, and I just cut it out. Okay. And I took this and I put it on the 14 by 14 artboard. And you can see I made it bigger. And how big is this artboard again? Oops. Hold on. All right. It's 300. So I did enlarge this. And this is for your question. Yeah, I want you to see this. I did enlarge this. You can see this was the one I worked with originally. I didn't make it this size, which is, if you look up here, whoa, that's a lot. It's 158%. So this is original. And then this is 18, oh, I'm sorry, 50%, 25%. So it looks like I enlarged this by 65%. And to be honest with you, this printed just fine. So way to check it is to go to view 100%. And then you could see, does this look like it's blowing out? Not really. To me, this looks like the original. And you could put the original next to it too. If you want to get back to it. So I just dragged it over like I did 50 times. Where is it? It's being weird today. All right. Sometimes I have too much. My computer is not as an older computer, so I have to say when I do the most, it says slow down a bit. So let me try that again. I'll make a copy. Okay. So if I blow this up 50% ish, go to view 100. Look at the original next to it. You can see it looks the same, right? So this is how I tested. This tiny little thing I was able to blow up 50%. So it's not bad. That's not bad. You could print it and try, and I would even print this and just like flatten it, print it, and see how it's looking. And then you'll know. Because if it's, you don't want to get too far into the design process and then realize it's all just pixelated and really crappy. You can't work with it. So this is a good test to see from the beginning, like how big I push this little guy. If I wanted to, I would scan this at 600, and because it's really small, you could even go 800. I know people do 1200, which is crazy, but if they really want to make sure that the integrity of the art stays intact, so we'll do it. But just FYI, your file, unless you're working on a smaller file artboard, that file is going to be in the gigs. So because the scan is so enormous, and you're going to be making duplicates of the layers over and over, and this is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So just plan ahead, make sure you don't have all your other programs are closed, and you have enough RAM, and you can get through that file if you want to work that big. For me, I don't really have much of a problem with this. So you can see it looks like it's going to be all right. So this is the original. This is the 50%. and it's okay. And I've seen this printed on, on wallpaper, and it looked fine. And I even used it in a journal. I'm sorry, a planner, agenda planner last year, and it was great. So, but it was also on a smaller scale. So that seemed to work fine. Okay, so this is what I did. I cut that out, and then I'm like, okay, I have this piece here. I want to put this in the square or rectangle because I think it will make a really cool tile pattern. So that was my thought. I was like, okay, how do I make this into a tile pattern? How do I make this a blue? So I need to pair it up with something because I can repeat it like this over and over again, do what I just showed you, but I think it needs more. It needs something else. So I went ahead and found another little, like what else in here would look cool with this? Do this. Like what would look cool with this? I love these little end shapes. So I was like, oh, maybe this is a nice like square rectangle shape. I can pair it with this. So I went ahead and started cutting these out. And then maybe I want a floral. So, I can add a floral to it. I have all sorts of stuff in here that I painted that is random that could go together. It could be very funky. It could be weird. And as I was painting it, I think I probably subconsciously think through it that way too. I'm like, oh, I could use this for a border later, or use this as, whatever coordinate. So I kind of paint with that in mind if I'm doodling, and I'm doodling with intention, knowing that if I use it for something. So like, for instance, like this is like in a square already. So I could repeat this piece, if you see this piece right here, over and over again. And I could you could fix those wonky, edges and stuff that you do in Photoshop. So, or I could add another section to it and repeat that over and tile it. So there's this, this is also in a rectangle. This part here, this more ornate part, this could be repeated over. This could be a border. It could be a lot of things, right? So look at your artwork in squares and rectangles and build them out that way. The rectangle, I'll show you how that was. Oh, I did show you how that was done. So basically you just kind of flip it and you build it in the rectangle. But for the in the triangle. But for the squares and rectangles, yeah, I start here first. And this kind of gets me started. And then if it doesn't work in the square and rectangle, or I might just have another idea. Be like, oh, I want to do a toss out of these things. And I grab them and I cluster them together, and then I work them around and move them around until it kind of makes sense. We scale things, and then I start to repeat it and see what it looks like. So right now, we go back to the next part of the file. Okay, so we have this. Then I want to build it out. So see, I brought in these little guys. I brought two in and I put it on top. And now it's starting to repeat itself. Then I went off the edge of this one. So then I did that. And then, okay, I have this first area that looks kind of fun together. Okay, so I repeated this part. I just brought it over and then I flipped it. Let's see if I flipped it. And then I added this to this edge. So it's basically the reverse of the other side. And then I go ahead and do it again. Everybody's going to get reflected on the other side. So now, and the guidelines are helpful too, so I can see. So now this is it. So I basically built that first part out, added onto it, and then I did cut this part off, like right here, because I wanted it to be straighter. And then I built it out. You can see, I'm going to ask you guys, does this make sense? Does this make, I'm asking everybody, because I'm not going to keep going if this doesn't make sense. I want to make sure you get this part down. It does for you. All right, thanks, Frida. So I want you to look at your things in your sketchbooks or wherever you have this random art. Oops, sorry. And this is the final, by the way, and I decolored it a few different ways. So once it repeats over and over again, we get this like really cool abstract pattern. Okay. So this is how I just kind of think through it. It's like, okay, I'm going to start with a square or rectangle. And then I'm just going to like pull things out and working. And it's really practice, trial and error. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know which pieces to use. Doesn't matter. just start putting them in a rectangle, start putting them in a square. And if they don't fit in there and don't make sense, then maybe it goes into a toss. So now maybe you just loosen them up a little bit and start to like move them and then repeat that whole cluster to the top and bring it around. So I'll show you that one next. But I would just start, you need to start somewhere. And starting somewhere is starting in a square, rectangle, or triangle. And then you repeat that over, and there's your tile pattern. Don't want the tile pattern, you could do a bunch of other different things with it. And just start moving them. You could do a linear pattern where they're just all like stripes or rows. You could do something that's tossed and really tightly tossed or loosely tossed or however you see it. Or it could be a combination of things. So this is when you really play, I find, and really learn how to build patterns by hand and design. You're designing, right? You're not just like making a toss again, making another toss again, or making a lattice tile pattern. No, I want you to like have fun with this and like, how can I take random things and make something really interesting out of it? And this is really going to give you, this is a rabbit hole that I can get lost and have fun in. Yes, I want you to play around. I want you to design. I want you to really think through like how you can make your patterns more interesting, stronger. This is going to make you a better designer. Guaranteed. You're going to start to see your art differently. And you're going to start to design with attention more, because as you're even making your doodles and marks, then you're going to, as you know, practice with this, you're going to be like, oh, I see this now. I see where this could go. I see something really fun could come out of this. And there's not just one solution. There's 5,000 ways you could take all these doodles on this page and make something really interesting. So I really want you to think about that too. Like, how does that work? Okay. Oops, sorry guys. And I just realized my face. You can see my face. Okay. So I'm going to be talking down, but you'll see me. So anyway, this is a really fun way to work, and you can really, really play for hours like this. So think about how you can take your artwork and just put it in these little random things. So now the triangle, I don't have a triangle shape here, but you can draw a rough one, and I've done that many times. Can I show you? No, I'm just gonna. Oh, and I'll show you the final. So and this is my working file. So and these files get big, and so I'll make a second file where it's just like less layers, and it's just one I can give a client later. They don't need all this. And this is where I do all my work. I have working files. I don't necessarily do the repeat in here sometimes, because I just want to see how many different designs I can get out of this. And then I might take just that cluster or that triangle or whatever I need, or the rectangle, and I'll bring it into another file. And that'll be like the final file that I repeat it in and make it work. That way it doesn't have all the crazy layers and all this stuff. So this is literally a working file, and I call it a working file. And you can see it has all these like repeat layers. And I want to make sure the repeat works sometimes in here too. Or I might go off on a tangent and find another way to do it. So this is where I play. Okay. So I might have a couple of different files in my folder for this one pattern, and I might have a couple of solutions for it. Okay, so then I have this. Let me turn these guys on. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Hold on. Okay. So then there's that repeat right there, and then I took this. I flattened it. I think I flattened it. Yeah. So then I just take this. I duplicate this whole group. And see, it's a group. You can Command E is to basically flatten. So you can go. Gosh, you're gonna ask me to do this so long. I don't remember, but I actually don't remember. You can probably just do this way too. You can merge them. So we're going to merge the group. I right click all the time. I don't even bother doing anything another way. So, and that's Control click on the layer. And we can see there. Merge the group. Or Command E does the same thing. Now this is flat. I make a duplicate, and this is just one layer. So I don't have all those mini layers anymore. And then I just started duplicating that and tiling it over and over and over and over again until I could see how it works. And I really like it. There is a little bit of a gap here. I'm a bit of a perfectionist about that. So in the past, sometimes I've even added elements in here, like I add more red dots or something, just so I fill that in. or I'll make these like yellow things bigger or stretch this. So whatever I need to do to make this look more natural and not have this like gutter in the back with these like these spaces. So I think I left it on this particular pattern. And I realized in the final it didn't really show up so much, but I can see this like from a distance. So I had to make sure that, you know, if it wasn't straight, because this is not a straight line, then you could just pull this out. And so you can warp anything in Photoshop. So for instance, see, this is not in a straight line. If you, I mean, really wanted to, like you could, you know, you could remove this. Guidelines are great for that. And you could cut off anything that's on the other side if you want it to actually be like straight, right? That's one way to solve that, but it doesn't look natural. So another way to do that is Command T. You want to select it, and you can pull the corners and just manipulate it. But I tend to keep the guidelines on. That way I'm not going too beyond. So I could like nudge that over. I put a guideline to make sure. So you can see it's going outside the guidelines. You don't want that at the square. So you just want to keep it in there. I mean, you can do that. You can just literally, and how I'm doing that is I'm holding down the, I'm going to the corner because then you get this little change. And then you hold down the option key and you get different options. And this one's a command. You'll see command option usually are your friends. And then you get that white arrow and then you start manipulating that. And then that sometimes I do that too. If it's not straight, then I'll just go ahead and do that. Easy little fixes. That's why I love Photoshop. You can do all this stuff. So I'm going to go backwards, and then I repeated it all the way around. And then I duplicated this. You can even flatten this again, and you can start adding colors to it. You start doing all sorts of fun things to it. I flattened it, put it on its own layer, and this is the layer I added color to. So what I did here was I wanted to make it blue. So now we have a blue version. So a cool and warm version. And how I did that, here's another pro tip. Go into your hue set. You can do a lot. I do recoloring lots of different ways with this one. To start with the easy here. Don't just use these sliders as is, because you're only going to get the values they give you from the master. Get out of that master. You got to start manipulating all of these to get here. Okay, so what I did was I went to the reds and I moved this red all the way out and I turned it to blue. Basically, it kind of gives you the opposite. The reds, blue. Because you were in the reds, so you're going to push the reds into the blues. You're going to go, so it's like an orange teal actually. And then I started moving the saturation because I didn't want this to be I want it to be more vivid, specific color. So you can see here, you're going to get these wonky, when you recolor like this, sometimes because it's watercolor, and you start to see all sorts of weird things happen. So you use these sliders kind of bring that down. So if it's going too red in certain places, then you can just kind of manipulate. So now I'm in the yellows. So anything that's yellow is going to change. So that's what I did here. Greens, anything that's green now is going to change. And that's why I did that. And then cyan, sometimes it doesn't do anything, but in this case, there is a cyan in here, so you can see this color does not work. And this is how you find new color combinations too. And this is how everyone's like, how do you do your color? Your color's so vivid, your color's so lush. This is it. This is how I do it. I go in here and I find colors I didn't even know went together, things I didn't even think of to begin with. I let the computer tell me how to do it. Because, you know, I can manipulate all of these things in Photoshop and it can give me the answers. I don't always know the right color combinations. And sometimes I don't even have a color palette. I will literally do this, these little doodads, bring them in, they're in some random colors, and then I bring it in here and I manipulate the crap out of it with all of these sliders until it comes out something really beautiful that I could not have planned at all. So this is another way. You're going to get lost in this, Letitia, and Trina. These are the things that I don't, this is the advanced stuff that I don't know is out there. I definitely want to do some classes on this because I think that it's going to make everybody stronger designers. So really just push this. You could also do this in Procreate. Procreate has hue sets and all that. I have to check it out. I don't know if you can go into all the different channels here, but I think you can. So check that out if you're using Procreate. See if you can, if it lets you manipulate these. If it doesn't, use your blending modes. That's another trick. So see my hue, you can literally take this hue sat and I could go into these blending modes and I use these like crazy. So I multiply it. Look at all these different looks you're getting. So because the blending modes are blending these colors down into the original. So the hue sat coloration is blending in, it's overlaying. There's a soft light cast now, there's a hard light cast, and it's moving them and blending them into the layer beneath it. So now you have like a softer palette. And this, I find some really fun and funky color combinations with these too. It's so fun. I mean, this is just like, oh, I didn't even think about this. This is like a little bit different take on it. This is a little bit more of like a not Southwest. Yeah, maybe like a Southwest vibe, right? So it kind of changes it up dramatically too. And you can say I put it on multiply. This is not where you end it here. You can go into opacities and blend it in just subtly or partially. So if it's too harsh, I'll take it down. I like it, but it's too much. You can take it down. Like endless things you can do with color. So much. Okay. So how am I saving my color palettes as separate files? Does that make any sense? Um, no, there's no way to do that. So basically, if you want, I save this. I'll do two. Okay. I know what you're saying. So basically, this is color one. I'll group this and I'll call this blue. Done. I duplicate this. And this is my working file, right? This is the file that I do all the experiments in. Then maybe I'll go into the masters and mess it with it here. Okay, this is interesting. Maybe I do like rust colors. Give me a second. Please change it up. All right, here we go. So say I want to do this like rust color. It's like, or like, not even deserty. I don't even know what these are. So say I have these darker colors. And then this one gets saved as darker. We'll just call it darker, whatever I need to name it, right? So this is how I do color files. Does that answer your question, Mary? So then I have the darker one, I have the blue version, and then I have the, save this, OG. And then I have three. So if I have a client and they love this, but they ask me, since they see it in blues, and one way I also make sure that I get the job is that I will give them different options. I just don't make one blue. I'll make a teal version, or I'll make a real primary blue version or an indigo version. And I'll send them all three different blues. I'm like, which blues do you like? And then they pick the one they like. And so they get to be more involved in the design process because they have choices and they can now not just get one, but then they can take those and like, oh, I like these two. Can we do something in the middle? Whatever it is, it just gives you a little bit more flexibility, and because now you know how to color things, you can just give them. You don't give them too many options, but you want to, just say blue or yellow. I used to do a lot of t-shirt design. Women's clothing designs. They would go on things like t-shirts and t-shirt dresses and different things, and I would always give them a blue and warm, and they would pick the one thing. So, and they would ask me for one specific thing, and that I always give them options. So options are good in some cases. Not all the clients want that, but if they're not sure, then it's a good way to go. So then that's how we do it. So I'll have all these different versions in here. If the file's getting too big or too crazy, then I just copy it, duplicate it, and make a separate file that's just darker colors. Make another one that has blues. You just need to separate them and make them organized so you know where the files are, especially the client says, I want the blue one. Oh gosh, I don't know how to make that blue again because I have to turn on and off all these layers and figure that out. I've done that many times. So make it easy on yourself and just kind of do it this way or any way that you can to keep the files clean and simple. Okay, so that is how that was built from this sketchbook. So, okay, I'm going to ask them again. Any other questions? That was a good question. question. All right. So again, I could, if I want to build something from scratch, let's do that. Oops, I keep doing it. Let's do that. I can do something very quickly and I'll show you. Let's close this out. I want to make sure. And then there's the blue version. This was the swatch I made for Photoshop. I can't speak. It's the swatch I made for Spoon Flower. This is the 12 wide one. And you can see it's going to be small because basically I mirrored this here. And then this, oh, I already did it. So you could see this row right here. These guys are, I mean, like 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this is 6 by 6. So these little dudes right here. Oops, I was trying to measure this. So to measure it, use your guides. You pull the corner down into the corner of the guides you made, and then it'll zero out right here. And this is only 1.5. So this little thing is only 1.5 wide. So it's very tiny. It's a very small scale, and this will help you see how big your artwork is too. So I measure the motifs in the file, so I know what it's going to print like. And I'm not getting surprised or anything. This is going to be too small. So if I were going to do this for real and I wanted it bigger, I think this half of it needs to be 12, at least this. So I need to make this fit the whole thing. So I'm going to have to rework this a little bit and make sure, because the full repeat is the reflection. I can't just take this part here, this part right here. I have to repeat this whole thing. So it has to be longer. So basically, I would take this and I would, if I could, stretch it down all the way to 12 and whatever long that ends up being. The height doesn't matter. It's just the width of it has to be right. And this is 11. I'm lying to you. No, it's not 11. It is 12. So, and I don't know if I can enlarge this again that big. Knowing that, I might have to start over, which is a pain. But if I know I need this for a client or I really want that project and I made it too small, darn it, I'm going to go ahead and rebuild it. So I have no problem doing that. I want to make sure I know the project and they have what they need. And if I built it right and I kept my working file, then I should be able to duplicate it in a larger format. Okay. So yeah, that does happen sometimes if you build it too small in Photoshop. But this in particular is a very small. These are really tiny little guys. So I would have probably from the get-go probably done it at 600 and done it bigger. But I only needed this for stationery, guys. And for a very small, tiny wallpaper pattern I needed. So it worked. It worked. But if I do want to do this again, yeah, it needs adjustments. Okay. So let's go. I'm going to stop sharing. So I'm going to open up some other files. Any questions? Do companies require you to digitize watercolor art in Photoshop to license it? Yeah, you can't. You have to have digital files to send your clients. You absolutely have to have digital files. And I like the way some of my watercolor work looks in Illustrator, but I'm not sure if I need to keep that in mind when designing. You don't have to when you say digitize it in Photoshop, these are watercolor. Everything you see in here is watercolor. I did not vectorize it. I didn't do anything, but it's digital because I scanned it and I brought it into the computer. Does that answer your question? When you say, I don't think I understand. Do companies require you to digitize watercolor? When you say digitize, that's the word I'm not understanding. What you saw me do here is a watercolor photo, a watercolor pattern. I didn't change it. I didn't vectorize it. The only thing that's been changed is the colors. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Oh, good. Hi. Yeah, could you?
Hi. I meant specifically, do they only accept watercolor art or patterns if you do it in Photoshop? So, like, if you like how it looks.
No, okay. Not at all. No. You can draw on Photoshop is for photos. It's for pictures. It's for drawing. It's for bringing in your scanned work. Anything. So it's you can do all sorts of stuff in here. So I draw in here all the time. I do
So do they?
most of my drawing. I really don't do a lot of Procreate. I've always drawn in Photoshop, and that was what you had before you had Procreate. So
Right.
I have brushes in here and everything. I do half my work is pretty much half painted, and the rest of it is finished in Photoshop, and I draw in it and over it and on it and all the things. So, yep.
But I meant like for watercolor specifically, do you only have to digitize it in Photoshop or do they accept it in Illustrator? Because I like the.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
okay.
if you want to do an Illustrator, that's how you do it. It's just however your artwork comes out. So if you do your artwork in Photoshop, you do it in Photoshop. You do it in Illustrator, you do it in Illustrator. If you want Illustrator, you can bring in your art right into Illustrator, not digitize it and make sure it's all cut out and everything, and then you can do your pattern work in there. I know people who do that because they just don't like Photoshop, but I find it to be a little bit not unnecessary, really, unless you already have it painted the way they want it, and then they bring the motifs in and they just do the repeats. But no, there's no rules. However you want to make your art, they don't require it to be at anything. They just want most of the time they want a JPEG, or if they want a working file, either they're gonna give them the Illustrator or the Photoshop file.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, all right, it's getting late. All right, let me open up some other things I had planned for you. These are great questions. Any other questions too? Just holler out while I'm getting ready for the next thing. I want to walk you through some before and afters of files like I just did, so you could see how it started and how it ended. Because I think there's some really interesting. This is a different method I'm going to show you. And yeah, feel free to let me know if you have any questions. So this is like a little bit of a higher level class today, but I'm hoping that you guys are getting it. All right, this one is made from blobs I painted, so I think blobs would be a good example. Okay, yeah, let's look at the blobs. All right. Oh no, oh good. I'm glad you like it, Gina. And for vector art, I'm not doing vector art again. I'm not. So if you want to vectorize your watercolors, go for it. Bring them in there and get them, to look the way you need them to. You're just gonna lose though. Obviously, you're gonna lose all the different values in there. That's why I don't do it there. I'll just do it here because I want my watercolors to look like watercolor. But it's a preference of mine. So whatever you like to do, go for it, leave in there. But if you're a vector artist or you illustrator artist. Okay, so let me show you how I make these blobs now. All right, and then I'll have one more and then we'll go. So we are going to run a little long, sorry, but there's so much to show. I could do a part two. There's so much to show you here. Or I could do a class, which I think I'm going to do. All right, so this is a random blob of flowers that I painted. I don't get hung up on what it's supposed to look like. Sometimes when I'm painting, I don't want to paint it accurately. I've gotten lazy, I have to be honest with you, with my painting. Now I'm pushing myself to get back into like painting to paint and to like make things look beautiful in there. So I don't have to do so much Photoshop work because I do miss painting and the skill of painting. But I think because I've had to work fast and so long and just churn out stuff that I just kind of, these are my shortcuts. So yeah, I did this blobby painting. It was on a random, I don't have the original scan, but there was a lot of other things on the page too. And you can see the edge of the papers right here. And then I just kind of did it on the page and then I just cut it out and I removed it from the background and I put it on this artboard. Then I was like, I want to pair this with something. And I needed this for an abstract art calendar that I have that I make every year. And I have to do 12 abstract art pieces. And so I can do them really fast because I work this way now. And so then I went on the same page. I had this blob and it's a part of another thing. And it's really, they're just pieces of stuff. So again, this is like unused art that's hanging out. I think I did this. I don't even know what this was. I may have just been making it for the calendar, but I don't know. And you can see it has other stuff in here. And I just did like a rough cut around it. I used the I'll just use this. And I went in and grabbed it. Okay. Brought it onto this blank artboard. This is the size they needed it to be in. So, so I already made the template size. And then I'm like, okay, watch what this is going to turn into. I take this and I move them around, and I do a lot of clustery designs, like I was saying. So I'm going to build it out, and this is how. Now you can see my process. And I'm giving you a really big look behind the curtains because I don't share the stuff. I really don't share the stuff. So, but I really want you guys to be better designers. This is a large. I think this is the same thing. I made it looks like I made it slightly bigger. I take this stuff and I move it around on the page. I may have brought in another one more. And what I'm doing is I'm filling up the corner so it looks more balanced. So I don't want like this moving nothing over here. So I put something in that corner and that corner. This one's a little smaller version of it. So I tuck that in. And I don't want it all going the same direction either. I don't want it to be really predictable where you can see what it is. So I took it and I turned it around and I resized it and just pushed it in the corner and wherever it needed to go. Okay. So this is just me moving around. And then I filled in with those little ones. So you can see here, I kind of put them here. I think I moved something. Hold on. Let's start over with that. History. I messed up. Hold on. History. And you can go back into your history, but I have my history set up so I can only go back so many steps. You could set it up in the back end to like take you all the way, like 50 steps behind if you need that. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Okay. So this is what I did. So I overlapped and moved these around until they kind of sat into a space that made sense. What you can do is go and I mask stuff out. I added a quick mask. Again, I'm not going to teach all of this today, but if you know Photoshop, you know. So this is what it looked like on the edges. I added a quick mask, and you have masks in Procreate too. Same thing. I found a softer brush. Usually I use like something that's not too blunt on the edge, something I could feather it out with. So like a soft round brush. And bigger, and sometimes I even lower the opacity, and then I just kind of go in and I take that out, that hard edge out, or I overlap the other one on top like this, so you can't even tell that hard edge was there. See what I just did there? So you kind of feather it out, and with a pattern like this, or with the kind of blob I made, it's very forgiving because there's really no like defined anything. So if you have these abstract paintings and blobs, they're the easiest thing to tile together or even just piece together and composite like this because you can feather out these edges and move things around. So I just basically brought this in. And so this hard edge, this is where I feathered out the edge. You see it here. I overlap things, and it's just like finessing it until those hard edges are gone. And then I balanced it out so there's a little blue here, a little blue there, and it's not big clusters of color in one area. And so this took some time, but this is what you do. Like you don't just drop it in and repeat it. No, bring it in and work it. Like work it until you can make it make sense. And then here's where the magic happened. I just showed you how I did the color change on the other one. Here's my hue stop. So now you can see that it looks completely different. These flowers look more defined. I love that like golden green in here. And that was because I was messing with all of these guys. Yellow, I pushed the yellow, it moved the greens, and the blue. Blue didn't change. It was too much blue. This blue adjusted a little bit. And I kind of went in there and I moved the sliders around until I had this beautiful full abstract. And I honestly kind of just knew it was kind of look cool because I've done this enough times that I know to make those blobs. So practice like making like, it doesn't have to be a flower. It could be anything really. And bring them in, feather out the edges, move them around, and just move around in the artboard. This is not in repeat, and it was not necessary to be in repeat because the client was going to take this. This has bleed on it, and we're going to use, I think, a 12 by 12 version. So it's 12 by something. So they didn't need the 14 by 14. So they're just going to crop it. So I knew that this was more than enough for them. And I gave them a JPEG of this and this RGB too. So I didn't make the same way. I might have lied. Oh, this is CMYK. This client needs CMYK. So I started it in CMYK and I closed it out like this. And this was one of the pages in the planner. Another thing you can do is, let me go back over to my tutorials, let's see, we'll find one more thing I'll show you. I have the original from. This was that paint palette I was telling you about. So I was trying different colors. I was mixing them, and I was just blobbing them down on this piece of paper to get the colors right. And then in the beginning, I don't know why I had the pencils on there. I think I was going to sketch out an idea, and then I just stopped. And I was like, let me just get these colors. So I just kept like mixing and blobbing them down, mixing, blobbing them down. And then when I saw this, I was like, this looks really cool. I could take this and make a pattern out of this. So nothing gets unused in my studio. Like honestly, like all this stuff gets saved. I literally save this because I know I have just like the magazine files and I have them full of just paintings and art and that I can take again and rescan. And so, and then when I don't even want to get it, but it turned into, let me show you the final. There it is. So now you see my process. I took all the way in. It's just like I did the flower, same process. I brought it in, I took the background out. Ooh, I probably brought this in. You can see here, and it's recolored. It looks like it recolored. I don't know why the color moves. Oh, the curves on. I lied. This is it. So I brought it in, took the background out, I removed the white. It's on the white background. And then there's some white still in there, and that's okay. And then I went ahead and started building it. So I just pulled it over to the side and I moved that up to the top. And then I brought another pieces of it in. And I started pulling it apart and like, oh, a little bit here, overlapping it here, overlapping it there. And I just wanted it to be chaotic. I wanted this to look like confetti. I wanted it to have this like fun. And then sometimes I'll just grab like a section of it and just recreate. So I'm like, oh, it needs more pink over here. It needs more blue over here. Just keep moving it and adjusting it, scaling it, rotating it until you fill in all those little gaps, spaces, and then it just looked like that. And I was like, that is cool as it is. If not, I can do more with it. So I added a background color. I have this background color. What you can do is you can put a blending mode on there and start seeing what all how it blends down into the colors. And I love these. The blues, the inversions are just so cool. You get some really fun stuff out of that. And then one color will be the red here. And then you start to see, I didn't love those. So what I did was, here's the blue. So I ended up putting a blue color on it. Different. I put it down at 84. And then it was looking just too blue and too dark, and I wanted more contrast. So I went into the curves, and then I also went into exposure. So I just lighten it up and brighten it up. And this is how I landed on. I could have kept going. I could have changed the hue sat. You could do so many different things to it. But I knew the look I was going for, and I could achieve that with those. And then you go down here to the quick keys, and you can find all this stuff. So levels, curves, this is all for lighting, basically. Contrast, color, and then the colors are down here. And then gradient map, these are for more advanced things. You don't need this right now. But I would play around and all the way down to color balance and up. And you can start to mess with these. And so this is where I ended up. And then I think I showed you that it was on the calendar. And then it ended up being the cover of this planner that came out in 24. And then they put gold foil. You can see this is gold. So there was always gold foil hits all over it. It's really pretty and it's fine. and I used it for the planner that year. But it was literally just from this palette that I had that I thought was really fun. And I just pieced it together, made a toss. It's basically kind of like a toss and a clustery toss, which is what I like to do. So then this was the same kind of thing. It was these clusters. I just had to feather out those edges and mask them out. You move them around. Not gonna have time to show you the full process, but I think you kind of get it now. So you could work in the tile that I showed you in the beginning, and you could work as a triangle or a rectangle. And if you work in Illustrator or even Procreate, make those triangles and then just draw in them, remove them, like, shut off the triangle layers, and then rotate them, invert them, mirror them, and start building those tile tessellated patterns. You can see that would be a really fun way to work. If not, if you have these like blobbier things that you want to just piece together and put together, this is a way to go with it too. And if you have a bunch of little guys like this one, oh my gosh, should I open this? It's a huge file. I'm gonna close this. I'll show you one other thing I did. I'll open this. I have one more to show you. This file's pretty big. These files get big. This one is like 600 megabytes. So I have a couple on here that I have 1.36 gigs, and this one's 600. So they can get big, and I do kind of notice it if it's you kind of notice as you're going along. Like this is gonna, if I do too many color options, this and that, it's just gonna, working file's gonna get too big. So sometimes I start a second one. This one was made out of a whole bunch of these little things that I pieced together. And I literally did that one by one by one. And it's on here somewhere. Pattern working. So you can see here, this is my working file. This is the ones I flattened out. And then these are all those freaking layers. Sometimes I've had like 200 layers. I put black background with that. This is a tan, and then this is, you can see it changes with all these different backgrounds. I added, so basically what I did was, I think with this original, I can find it. Sometimes you just don't, I don't have it all, but I think these were, I just went in here and I used a brush and I put a texture to the texture over just like a bunch of different colors. And I used like a black brush or a brush texture or something. And then I went ahead and I cut out all these little shapes using this, and then I put them on separate layers, and that's it. And then I started piecing them together. You can make it from scratch too if you didn't digitally, or if you painted all these little things. Like say you have a bunch of marks like this in your sketchbook or wherever, pull them all in here and just work in a small section, like a small rectangle, a small square, a small cluster, a circle, hexagon, whatever you want to do, but just work in a small area and start grouping them and getting them how you want them. And then you could build out and build out. This case, I really probably should have just made a smaller planet. It's small anyway. I probably should have done like 4x4, and then just that would have been the but I was kind of crazy and built a full repeat on this whole artboard. So, and for some reason, it's in pattern preview. So, pattern preview. I need to show you that really quick. I'm going to do that. So pattern preview is how you can make your patterns repeat. So it's view, pattern preview. You can see here, this does not repeat. Okay, this was not built out yet. If I want this to repeat, I will need to shut a lot of this off. See how it's done. Probably just going to do it in a simple way. So this is, it would already broke off the top. Hold on, let me get one that's not. All right, so when you do a pattern, you can work in pattern preview or pattern view, but I don't like to do that because as soon as you do this and you move this off the edge, you can see it's repeating. Then you go out of it, then this is now cut off. It's literally cut. See, so I don't want to ruin my art yet, so I don't do that move until I know where it's going to go. So go to view, undo. So I would probably just going to start over. I'm just going to use this. You can see, I just want you to see how it works. So anything you move off the top, it's going to repeat off the bottom, corner, the edge. There's no math. It's so great. So you basically just move it into position, and it's the final file is going to be in 4D. You could just make a JPEG, just make it, duplicate it, save it as a JPEG. That's your swatch. Done. It does it for you. You don't have to think about it. So all my patterns I make them this way. I even build the half drops in here. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a square. However, it ends up working out. It could be a rectangle. And if you watch my other class, Photoshop tutorial, my other Photoshop tutorial, I show you pattern view, that pattern view in there. So you can watch that and review that. I'll just give you a quickie here. So let me get out of here. So what I'll do is I'll move it to the edge, close to the edge, but I won't put it off the edge because I know that it's going to do what it's going to do. So for the sake of time, I'll just blob this up, these blobs around, move them around. This is what I do. I kind of fit them in together like a piece, like puzzle pieces. I don't ever want them to go in the same direction. So I'll move them in a way where they can overlap. Maybe they need to resize. And then I'll bring it down. That's kind of good. So what I'm doing is Command T, transform, and then for transforming, I can do all sorts of stuff. So say I want to, this is when I go in and I grab sections of things. I don't even know what I'm grabbing, just grabbing it. And then you can hold the Option key down. You can pull it, then duplicate it. When you do this, you have to put it on its own layer, because you can see down here, it's all on the same layer now. It's all two pieces on here. I don't want that. So, good. So Command Shift J, which is layer. Let's see. Let's cut new. Here it is. Cut. So you want to cut it out. You want to copy it. It's Command J. Cut it out from that layer. And it puts it on its own layer. That's what that means. So if I do Command Shift J, you can see here. Oh, I didn't do that. You'll see here that I put it on its own separate. That's a really fast way to work. So now I have this guy. I'm going to put it at the bottom, and I'm going to use this to just fill in these little spaces. So right now, what I can do is go in the pattern view. This is a kind of down and dirty way to do it, but you practice with it, watch my other video, and you can watch some I'll make some other tutorials, but if you don't have enough information, feel free to look it up. Plenty of people that teach it too. I'm going to start moving things in off the artboard, and then you can see them coming in and filling in the space. This one, I move this down, and I could just go in the middle. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to get, I'm just going to move them all around the artboard. That space. And then I'm just going to take these little pieces. Make sure you have your chicken meal, brown rice. Are you guys muted? Chicken, rice flour. I'm gonna have to mute you. Make sure you're muted. Thank you. All right, and then I'll just go ahead and move this down. We're almost done, guys. And I'm just gonna fill in these holes now. And I don't need to be in pattern to do that. So pattern, just need to do that. I'm just gonna fill in these holes. It's not going off the edge. So, and look how forgiving this is. Like it really, because I have this blobbier pattern. Now see how these are two the same flowers stacked on top of each other? I hate that. I don't want this stripe happening here. So something to think about, move things around so it doesn't look so intentional. I mean, it doesn't look so messy and predictable. I don't like predictable patterns. I don't need to see all my work. Yes. So I want you to feel like it was more organic. That's it. This just has a little bit of a flavor. So this, and then I could go in, I could add this how I do it. I add a quick mask here. I go to the brush, make sure it's on black. I grab some kind of, well, it could be a texture brush or a soft brush, and I go into the edge here. See, I can see this hard line. So I go into this edge and just soften it out. And it still looks harsh. Oh, because it's the one on top. And that is this. So I can see this edge here. I don't like it. So I'm going to go quick mask. And I'm going to see if I can soften it. Let's see if it's not natural. And if it's still giving me a hard edge, I'll the other one. And maybe just turn it on and off to see what's happening. I don't know. Oh, I just need to press harder. And it's on 89. So I got 100, I'll get it. And then in this hard edge here, I don't like that either. So that I would do the same and just mask out that edge, mask out this edge, look around, zoom in on it, and just find all those edges, soften them. If you need to bring in another blob, cut it out, put it on top, and cover that line up. I've done that before too. Here's a hard line right there, like that. So I go in, fix that. And look how fast I did this. You know what I mean? Like, I really didn't spend a lot of time making this perfect. Oops. Here it is. Take the edge out. And when you have these kind of patterns, you can do this quickly. This is a full repeat now. Look at that. So pattern preview, you could see it repeats infinitely. I could take off the artboard so you can see it for this. Now, this also is a good idea. Take off the artboard and you can see if there's any hard edges. So there is one right here that's sticking out here, like that. So me in here. So me being a perfectionist, I'm going to go in and clean those up. Then it's perfect. And this is the repeat. So when you bring your extras back, there's your artboard. What I would do is image, duplicate, duplicate, merge. So you can merge them all, flatten it all down. And you just have one file. I would save as, or save a copy. And then this would be a JPEG. And this is the swatch. If I needed to hand the swatch into a client or upload it to something, then this is it. This is what gets uploaded. Make sure that it's, if it's Spoonflower, it has to be RGB, it has to be 150, it has to be 12 inches for wallpaper. It's very specific for that. But if you're doing for your POD stores, just look at your POD sizes. Make sure our artboard is properly sized in the right, it's in the right color modes, RGB or CMYK. So make sure your files are set up right, obviously, before you finalize them. And make sure they're done the right way from the beginning. Sometimes I will turn RGB into a CMYK, and that's another trick of mine. I will work in RGB because I want the color super bright, flatten it, then save it as a CMYK, and you'd be surprised how much the color stays as is. So if you try to flatten it when you have blending modes and other things happening and all the layers, it looks terrible and it doesn't look right. So that's another way to get around that too. It's not identical, but it's close, super close. Because I just like my color, so I want it to be that. So that is pattern preview. I know we went long. Yeah, Trina says, I'm excited to review my sketchbooks. Yeah, you should. I think you all should be now if you got this. And again, watch my other class if you need to see the pattern repeat part of it. But I just wanted you to really get started, have some kind of framework and some way to get started with this. I think it's helpful to at least look at your sketchbook now and see, okay, what am I going to use these things for? Just go back to the slides again, watch the first part of this. What's your intention? What's your purpose for this? And then you can build your file correctly. If you just want to play to start, that's fine. I think you should do that actually. If you just want to get the technique down, and then you can go back and really make some art for your portfolio. It's really freeing. Yes, Anne says it's helpful to see how freeing it is to design this way. This is exactly how I like to work. I don't when I see other classes, and I think they're very technical, and I think that's great. I think that's showing you how to physically make the repeat and how to do the technical parts of it. But toss is not the only way to do it. There's so many other ways to make take your artwork it's existing the way it exists and bring it into you can do this in Procreate as well. Like I was saying, you can take those little bits and bobs and arrange them on the page and then go ahead and make your repeat. You can definitely do this in Procreate. So you don't have to bring it in Photoshop at all. If you want to work in there, you can mask your edges out in there too. You can do the coloring in there. You can do all of those things in Procreate. So don't feel like you have to open Photoshop if you don't know. But these are just, it's similar in some ways, Procreate is, so you can do those same things. You do have blending modes, you do have QSAT, you do have the clipping mask, so you can do all of that. So yeah, and then in Illustrator, if you work in Illustrator, just use those bits and bobs, bring them into Illustrator, and just make your patterns in there too. So you won't be able to do like the heavy recoloring and all the finessing and stuff, but you can definitely take those things out of your sketchbook, vectorize them, or if you just drew them vector, you just take them as vector and keep them that way. So there's so many ways to go with making patterns now, and I think that's a good way to. The word you use, frame, is a really good way to describe this. And this is how I work. This is exactly how I work. I do not always know what it's going to look like, unless it's something I have like planned out, and I know it has to look this way, and that's rare, to be honest with you, unless it's specific to the client. But some of my projects, I get to do these abstract calendars, and I get to have fun with them, and so I know that I'm just going to make blobs and create, right? So go ahead and take a look at your unused art and see what you can make happen. All right, we're done. Any other questions? See y'all smiling faces. Any other questions? And anything that didn't make sense or you want me to clarify? Nope. All right, that's great. Oh, you're welcome. And yeah, feel free to email me if you do have any further questions, or if you'd like to see me do this again with some other art. I could even take your art. That might be fun. So if you want to volunteer yourself for that, feel free to just send me an email and send me over your artwork. And that would be cool too. I can work on your artwork and show you how to improve it. I love doing that. I do that with my coaching clients all the time. They'll give me their pieces and I will show them in real time on the computer how to fix things, recolor things, just develop it further. So I love doing that. So yeah, if there's something you like want to send me one of your pages, we could do that. That would be fun. Yeah, let's do that. That sounds cool. But yeah, if you want coaching with me too, this is how I'll coach you through, and I'll look at your portfolio and I'll go through pieces with you and you want to improve, and we'll work on it together. We'll pull a collection together or improve one that you already have. And I'll show you all these tips and tricks too. So you get to see what I do and how I do it when you work with people. All right. I don't know. I discussed it before I was able to get here. Okay. So yeah, so I'm just looking at your chats here. So yeah, shoot me an email if you have any questions. If you want me to work on your artwork, that would be fun too. I'll make an announcement about that. That might be a fun class to do. And if you have ideas for it, too, I can work them out and we can talk. I'll get you on here and we'll work it out together. I'd love that. I just came up with that, and we're going to do that at some point in the future. So we'll do a work with me, or work with me lesson, or a session actually. That would be cool. And I can do that with your illustrations too. So if you have an illustration or a card design or something that's more composed, it doesn't have to be a pattern that you want improved, and maybe it's you want to look at the drawing a little bit, or you want to get the composition better, or you want to know how to put like words with the art or whatever it is, I can do that too. So that would be fun. And I did that in the last class a little bit, but specifically I could work with you directly on the piece. So yeah, let's do more of those. Let's work with me. All right, so that's it. So yeah, if you have any questions about this, feel free to email me. I'll let you all go, and you'll have the replay soon. Okay. All right. Thanks for coming. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.